All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Brandon Doyle, Marketing Manager here at Blue Corona. And I'd like to welcome you to our latest webinar titled Nextdoor Advertising, the next big platform for local companies. Today, I'm joined by Blue Corona's Director of Account Development, Alex Perini. Alex has been with us here at Blue Corona since we first opened our doors over 10 years ago and is going to walk everyone in attendance today through Nextdoor Advertising and more specifically, three main parts. Why Nextdoor advertising is important for local businesses. Second, how Nextdoor advertising works. And then third, how to get started. So again, we want to thank you for joining us today. A couple administrative pieces to get out of the way before I kick it over to Alex here. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, feel free to toggle the little questions arrow in your GoToWebinar panel. That'll allow you to type in your question. And of course, we've dedicated time at the end of the webinar to answer any questions you may have. So thank you for joining us. And with that, Alex, take it away.
Thanks, Brandon, and thank you everybody for joining today. I'm very excited to talk to you about this new opportunity for Blue Corona clients, which is Nextdoor Advertising. So let's get started. As Brandon said, I will walk through really what is Nextdoor in general and what it means to advertise on Nextdoor. I'll talk about the Blue Corona and Nextdoor relationship. We'll walk through some data from an existing client who's running a campaign on Nextdoor through us and show you the results that they're seeing to date, and then talk about how you guys can get started with Nextdoor. Okay, so Nextdoor has been running, Nextdoor first is a social media network for neighborhoods. Nextdoor has been running in-app sponsored posts for a little over 2 years now, and over the course of that time, they've run hundreds of campaigns for businesses. Most of these campaigns have been more regionally focused for home service related businesses, as well as campaigns for very large national brands like ADT, the Ring doorbell, the video doorbell, Match.com, Home Depot, Home Advisor. You see really mostly big brands advertising on Nextdoor. Historically, Nextdoor hasn't worked with local businesses, but again, rather primarily the large regional companies or national companies. So that's why the Blue Corona Nextdoor relationship is so exciting for you. We've essentially made Nextdoor much more affordable for local businesses. So first, a little Nextdoor 101. Like I said, Nextdoor is a social network for neighborhoods. So users have to submit their real names and their addresses, and they have to verify their address. So they truly are people living in these neighborhoods. People on Nextdoor are on there to do all different sorts of things. As you can see here, invitations to neighborhood events, lost dogs. I see also a lot of found dogs on my Nextdoor page, volunteering opportunities, any notifications about neighborhood crime or curb alerts. Here's a bookcase that I want to get rid of. Somebody will pick it up within 5 minutes of you posting it on Nextdoor. But I'd say the primary use for Nextdoor is to ask your neighbors for recommendations. So of course, people are asking for recommendations, when they're uneasy making a buying decision. And a lot of the time on Nextdoor specifically, they're asking for recommendations about home service businesses. So like it says here, 56% of Nextdoor content is about recommendations, but home service recommendations make up 91% of all recommendations on Nextdoor. So it's pretty much the only recommendation type of thing that people are asking for is about home services. People are generally asking their friends and neighbors for high ticket items on Nextdoor, right? Like, who's the best HVAC company that you've had to your house, or roofing company or whatever it is. People are rarely asking for recommendations about like their favorite pair of running shoes. And what's interesting about it is they're asking for these recommendations of their neighbors, so people who are in the same, socioeconomic, status as them, to give them recommendations for these very large buying decisions. So just some other things that people are asking for recommendations for on Nextdoor, which is sort of like a neighborhood Craigslist. They're like selling things on Nextdoor, and they may be asking for like local restaurants. But again, 91% of the recommendations asked for are about home services businesses. So the point of Nextdoor isn't to be a social network like Facebook or Instagram that is entertaining. It's a very utilitarian social network, all about practical things like recommendations and neighborhood events. So a few important stats: 90% of consumers are making their purchases within 15 minutes of their home or work. $6 trillion a year of annual consumer spending is driven by word of mouth recommendations. And that's really the purpose of Nextdoor, turning your neighbors into brand advocates. Each and every campaign you decide to run, anybody that's used your services before, they can recommend you to their neighbors through the campaign. So one recommendation could equate to several leads. And finally, 76% of members have been influenced. 76% of Nextdoor members say that they've been influenced by a neighbor's recommendation when making a buying decision. Okay. Next, you're probably wondering what makes Nextdoor so unique and different from the other social media networks, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn being the three big ones. Nextdoor is the only private social network, and the members have to verify their identity with their real name and physical address before they can even sign into the platform. Nextdoor wants to make sure that you, the advertiser, are targeting the precise area you want to be targeted or to be targeting. And it's not like location targeting. It's not like how location targeting works on mobile devices or like with Google Ads, where they're essentially targeting based on a computer's IP address. With Nextdoor, you're actually targeting the user based on the address of their home. So Nextdoor is, of course, verifying all 27 million users' addresses and essentially eliminating ad waste like what exists with other types of campaigns that are based on IP addresses. So because of Nextdoor's internal structure, they haven't traditionally worked with local companies. But with Blue Corona, this becomes local at scale, meaning through the Blue Corona Nextdoor relationship, you can run campaigns in your area or across the country if you needed to, no matter where you're located. So it's essentially national reach, but with a hyper-targeted, localized approach specific to your company. I'll talk about targeting here in a second. So every neighborhood in the country that's on Nextdoor can have like a different conversation on a sponsored post. Okay, a different conversation than the neighborhood next to it. So you can essentially enter each neighborhood conversation and answer questions and interact with the Nextdoor members by neighborhood in real time. So again, it's not entertainment. Nobody's arguing about politics or posting vacation selfies on Nextdoor. It's really a place to get stuff done, ask for recommendations, help your neighbors out, and ask your neighbors for help. So a little information about the audiences. 90% of neighborhoods in the country are using Nextdoor. And those that aren't using Nextdoor are actually in pretty rural areas. So Nextdoor is in every major market. Some markets have a 40% household reach, but every market is of course different in size. So Nextdoor covers every state, more than 170 neighborhoods. Nextdoor's members represent a pretty valuable demographic, kind of opposite from some of the other social media networks. On Nextdoor, the members are typically married with children, they skew more female, high household income, they're homeowners, and of course they're using more mobile than desktop. We see it's older, more affluent families and homeowners using the platform to make buying decisions. anywhere from young families through baby boomer generation. The targeting is pretty efficient, so let's walk through this. A little bit about geo-targeting. There are two main ways to target an audience on Nextdoor if you're setting up a campaign, or if we're setting up a campaign for you. The first is you can target the whole DMA. DMAs are major metro areas, like the Los Angeles metro area, Washington, D.C. metro area, Atlanta, Chicago. This can be, in a lot of cases, it can be a very large area, and some of our clients maybe don't target the whole DMA. And so if that is not the case for you, you would want to target by zip code. And so you would provide us a list of zip codes you want to target. And we reach out to our Nextdoor rep and ask how many impressions are available in your set of zip codes per month, so we can give you, an estimate. The minimum number of impressions to buy per month from Nextdoor is 200,000 impressions. If our Nextdoor rep tells us there are 500,000 impressions per month available in the zip codes that you provide, then you can essentially choose to buy anywhere from 200,000 to the max. You don't have to buy the max number. But again, you can either target by zip code or by DMA. So next, I just want to show you how the ads show up on Nextdoor. Here are a couple examples. The ad itself is for State Farm. So on the left, you can see a sponsored post on a phone. It's in the news feed. The news feeds kind of look exactly like they look on Facebook or Instagram, but really more like Facebook. On the left, again, you have the ad in a mobile phone. In the center, you have the ad on desktop. It just shows up, again, in the middle of the news feed. And on the right, you have the daily email that really gives you highlights of what's going on in your neighborhood, things your neighbors are talking about. There's a sponsored post section of the email that's going out to all the members of your neighborhood. Okay, and with all of these places, users have to scroll down past the ad or open the email in general. Like on the email side of things, they have to have opened the email for the ad to be considered delivered or for an impression to be counted. Okay, so a couple other examples of posts. There are all sorts of companies advertising on Nextdoor. Of course, these are all ads that have the purpose of generating a lead. On the left, we have Home Advisor. In the middle, we have a dog walking service. And on the right, we have Angie's List. Angie's List, Home Advisor, obviously huge companies, and they're trying to drive leads. Of course, like I mentioned before, we also see ads, more brand awareness type ads for big companies like Home Depot or Xfinity. A lot of those are more brand awareness, trying to make themselves a household name, not necessarily drive leads. Okay, advocacy and local context. So this is pretty interesting. Talking a little bit more about how this works at the neighborhood level. We of course want to drive you leads. That is the point of running a Nextdoor campaign. But what we really want to do is drive leads by getting consumers to advocate for you. Consumers, the neighbors in your prospective customers' target area. So it's not like a Yelp review. These reviews, these recommendations that can happen on Nextdoor, they're really anybody who have either worked with you or heard good things about you or simply like your posts. Anybody can basically thank, do the smile thank button or write something saying they recommend you, but there are no 1 to 5 star reviews that could, potentially tarnish your name. So the goal is really just to drive as many recommendations as possible to drive you leads. Here's an example from a local, this is a security company like ADT, but they're local to the Charlotte area. Plaza Midwood is my neighborhood, the neighborhood I live in. So this is an ad I see frequently on my Nextdoor account. And you can see I have 16 neighbors that have recommended CPI. and then there's a button to get an offer from them. Okay, next I want to show you some results from one of our clients. So this is a heating and air conditioning and electrical contracting company on the East Coast. This campaign was November through January, so right in the middle of winter on the East Coast. The campaign was 3 months. This client received, they signed up for 200,000 impressions per month. And so the campaign was basically showed to just about 600,000 impressions over the course of the 3 months. About 5,500 households per day saw their ads. That resulted in over 1,300 website sessions or visits to their website. 133 contact forms, 54 calls, but you guys know us. We really care about how many of those contact forms and calls were leads. So the number that we all love to see is 58 new customer leads from this Nextdoor campaign. This 3-month Nextdoor campaign is the visit to lead conversion rate being 4%. Now, how about let's talk about revenue numbers. These 58 leads have driven about $20,000 in revenue so far, but we have about 20 estimates that have been given where nothing's been invoiced yet. So we're expecting 30 to 40% of those 20 estimates to close into a deal as well. So we haven't booked the final revenue on this campaign yet, but it is not simply a brand awareness type of campaign. The campaigns are driving leads and sales, which is very exciting. Okay, so let's talk about the Blue Corona Nextdoor relationship. We are very excited to be partnering with Nextdoor because we are the first and only agency with this sort of relationship, with any relationship with Nextdoor. So as an agency, we can basically consolidate ad spend by creating a single advertising insertion order. So Blue Corona essentially can group multiple clients together to reach Nextdoor's minimum rather than you as an advertiser going straight to Nextdoor. The minimums with Nextdoor are much higher. So in addition, of course, Blue Corona will help facilitate everything. We will help you come up with any special offer. If you decide to run a special offer or promotion in the ad, we of course would create, make all the ad creative and write all the copy, design, create and write a landing page, of course, the whole 9 yards, and then tracking everything on top of that. So Nextdoor is focused on how many impressions they can deliver and creating brand awareness and of course generating recommendations. Blue Corona is of course focused on increasing sales and driving leads and tracking exactly what's coming from the Nextdoor campaign. So just like every other campaign that we run for you and track for you, you will be able to see, the impressions, website visits, leads, and then help us track how many sales are coming through the campaign too. Lead tracking, call tagging, of course, all of that will be included with the campaign. So we are currently putting together the run that will start on May 1st. All campaigns start on the 1st of the month, and you have to, the minimum is a 3-month campaign. You could sign up for 4 months or 5 months if you wanted, but we're currently working on the May 1st launch date. So that would cover May, June, and July, or May, June, July, August. Again, a minimum of 3 months. The deadline to be in for the May run is April 1st. So you can think about that for all future months. If you decided you wanted to start on June 1st, the deadline to get everything, or at least to get the agreement signed so we can reserve the advertising space with Nextdoor, the deadline is always 1 month before the launch date. So May 1st deadline for the June 1st launch. Okay, and it's not just Blue Corona clients running ads on Nextdoor. any advertiser in the country can also reserve advertising space with Nextdoor, and so that means that the advertising space does fill up quickly. It's limited, first come served basis. So as soon as you decide that you're interested in Nextdoor, contact me, contact your account manager, and we'll work on we'll work together to figure out what your target list of zip codes is. We'll get with the Nextdoor rep to figure out how many impressions are available. There's some markets where Nextdoor isn't widely adopted yet, and so there actually aren't enough impressions to even run advertising. But Nextdoor is growing rapidly, and so I'd say I would certainly be happy to contact our Nextdoor rep, in 6 months down the road and look at what are the impressions available in 6 months in certain markets where there may not be a ton of impressions right now. But the Nextdoor rep will come back with, here are how many impressions available in this target list of zip codes that you give us. And then you can choose whether you want to do 200,000 impressions per month, which is the minimum, or you want to do some higher number based on what's available. So the minimum spend is $6,250 a month. It's a $31.25 cost CPM, which is cost per thousand impressions. So $62.50 a month for 3 months is the minimum for a Nextdoor campaign, and that's for 200,000 impressions. We of course can talk about how much it would cost if you wanted to buy more impressions. Once we figure out what that target zip code list is, sign the agreement with Blue Corona so that we can go reserve the space with the advertising space with Nextdoor. And then we have a kickoff call with your account manager and the Blue Corona Nextdoor team, the team that's going to design the ads, write the copy for the ads, create the landing page, and all of that. And then Nextdoor does reporting on a bi-weekly basis. Of course, we include all the numbers in your monthly reports. We can change the ad, we can change the offer and the ad copy and all that up to once a month. So on the first of every month, we can change everything if you wanted to test a different special offer, for example. Okay, that's all I have today. Any questions? Brandon, do you have a list of the questions people are asking?
I do. So again, if you do have a question, you're saving it for the end, feel free to toggle the little triangle next to the word questions in your GoToWebinar panel. So go ahead, take a couple minutes, type those in. In the meantime, we do have a couple that have trickled in that we can get started with.
Great.
So Jose wants to know, Alex, how much was it again per month?
Okay, so it's a $31.25 CPM, which is cost per thousand impressions. The minimum number of impressions that we have to buy is 200,000 per month. So that's $6,250 a month minimum. You could spend more than that if there are more impressions available in the zip code list you want to target. But again, $62.50 a month, and 3 months is the minimum.
And Alex, again, can you just kind of quickly cover what that $62.50 per month does entail from the Blue Corona side of things?
Sure. Okay, so the $62.50 includes 200,000 impressions, ad impressions on Nextdoor per month, and it includes all of the ad creative, copywriting, consulting, and strategy around what to include, what you should be advertising, special offer, and all that. And then landing page. We design a Nextdoor specific landing page for your website and write all the copy for it, procure the imagery for it, and all of that. So landing page, ad creative, of course, all the tracking as well.
All right, and Alex, is there any guarantee of ROI or performance?
No, there is not. Just like anything else, we realize Nextdoor might not be for everybody, but we do think it provides a great opportunity for a lot of local companies that are interested in having a direct connection to specific neighborhoods For context, Nextdoor gets about 600 inquiries a week to advertise. Advertisers are inquiring to Nextdoor about how they can get on Nextdoor. 99% of them, of course, can't afford Nextdoor's minimum. Blue Corona is the first and only agency at this time that offers a much lower minimum to get in with Nextdoor, but there's no guarantee in terms of performance. The only thing they're really guaranteeing is, the impressions, the number of impressions.
All right, thank you. And it looks like Al wants to know, in the example client that you showed, Alex, that the number of leads, what was the total ad spend for that? Was that the $6,250 and generated 1 month?
That was the minimum.
3 months.
Yeah, that was the minimum. So 62. I should know this number. $18,750. So the $6,250 a month times 3 months. So $18,750 was a spend. They've already closed $21,000 in sales from the leads that have come in from the campaign in those months, and they still have 22 outstanding estimates. So they're assuming that they're going to close even more.
All right. And Al, again, chiming in. So yes, Al, the answer to your question is it's 54 leads or 58. I forget what the number was, but that was over the span of 3 months,
yeah.
Not 1 month. Yes.
Right.
All right. Stanley wants to know if anyone is trying it currently, and in your opinion, Alex, how does this compare to a direct mailer? Would it be more successful?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Good. That's a great question. So we are running a campaign. So our first campaign was November through January. We didn't run anything in February. We have another campaign that just started in March. We have 6 people running in starting in March. And we have another, I believe, 3 starting again in April. And then we're working on a whole bunch to start in May. So we only have 2 weeks of data for this new March run. The second question was how does this compare to direct mail campaign? I think what's so different, I would say it's similar in theory. You're sending out advertising to people who didn't necessarily ask for the advertisement. It's not like a search on Google where people are searching for something that they need and want, and they want to buy it. And so you want to be at the top of Google if they're searching for what you sell. It's not that. It's a display ad. You're showing an ad to somebody who may or may not be in the market to buy from you right now. I think a couple ways it's different from a direct mail piece is one, it's more impressions. If with a direct mail drop, presumably you're sending one postcard to each household. With this, your ad is showing multiple times to each household. I believe it's up to 12 times in a month. A household might see your ad. Another huge difference is the conversation and the social proof that happens around these ads. Like I showed you in that CPI security, which is sort of like an ADT. In their ad, you saw like 16 neighbors recommend this company at the bottom with like a heart next to it. It's like Facebook in that you can people can essentially like or recommend your company right there in the ad, and comment, and a conversation can start right there in the ad, which is quite different from sending out a direct mail piece.
All right.
Brandon, do you think that sufficiently answers the question? Do you have anything else to add there?
I do, Alex. Thank you. Thank you. So one of our clients wants to know, can we pause these ads when we are not interested in having them running, example, per month?
So it is a minimum 3-month campaign. So we're about to start the April campaign in a couple of weeks. So that would be April, May, June. You could decide not to run in July and then start again in August. It is a minimum 3 months. We haven't had any clients want to run, for example, April and May, pause June, and then run in July. So that hasn't even come up. I need to ask our Nextdoor rep the answer to that question.
All right, Alex, last question here. So Stanley says, so my neighborhood has the app that I belong to and active on, wants to confirm if that would be where the ads would pop up.
Yes. You know what? I'm going to go back. Okay, so on the left here, this is probably what you're seeing. I think it was Stanley who asked the question. So this is how it looks on your phone, the app, like the news feed and the app on your phone, and this is what an ad would look like. So you probably, if you go on the app on your phone, you may see advertisers in there. You'll see a little tiny gray words that say sponsored with a blue button with a call to action. I've seen learn more. I think I've seen like a call now, redeem. There's all sorts of call to action buttons. But that button is always blue, and they appear to be just like normal posts in your newsfeed. But that's where they are, right in the middle of the newsfeed. And then again on email, they're within the body of the email. It's like the digest that goes out to the neighborhood every day.
All right. Thank you, Alex. Looks like that takes care of all the questions today. On behalf of Alex and I, we want to thank everyone for joining us and learning a little bit more about Nextdoor Advertising. As Alex mentioned, if you do have any other follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to your account manager, either by telephone or shooting them a quick email, and they'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Brandon. And remember, last thing, April 1st is the deadline to get in for the May 1st campaign start. So if you're interested, at least if you want to know what the impression numbers are for your area, get in touch with your account manager and we'll start the conversation with Nextdoor. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your time today.
Thanks, everyone.